Alrighty, everybody, it is currently November 14th, or Friday, November 14th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from the government. Oh, and look at that. Everyone's back. I don't know. I don't know if anyone has listened to any of the previous episodes, but when the government shutdown happened, whenever that was, 3 years ago or whenever the fuck it started, uh, my intro was coming at you live from the government. There's no one here. I don't know what's really going on. It was long ago. Look, I am a pretty classic Gen Z, you know, social media addict, brain rot maxing moron. I am one of those people kind of in a lot of ways. So, yeah, sure. Maybe my memory is decent, but my sense of time has definitely been distorted by at this point probably thousands of hours of doom scrolling, if not tens of thousands. Uh, but I do feel like it has been forever since the government shut down. It was how long was it? 40 days or something like that. I thought Trump was going trying to go biblical on it. You know what I mean? With like I thought he was going for 40 days and 40 nights, being like, God told Noah to build the ark for 40 days and 40 nights, and that's how long he told me to shut down the government for. To and that would work, by the way. Look, shitty Trump impression aside, that would work. That would convince the the masses of people who all have severe psychosis who follow him. That would convince them. They'd be like, "Oh my god, he is a fucking prophet, dude. 40 days and 40 nights, that's also a Noah did it." And a lot of people like to call the hardcore Trumpers retarded, and certainly a a large portion of them are. Certainly. But I think it's more of a psychosis type of thing. You know what I mean? Because a retarded person wouldn't be able to like rationalize the things that Trump does the same way that these people do. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously their rationalizations are insane and make no sense, but they're not simple. There's nothing simple about like the rationalization that Trump people come up with to defend him. You know, it's the most incredibly complicated, convoluted thing you've ever heard in your life. It's like, no, Trump is on the Epstein list, but he was actually a double reverse agent, and Epstein was actually a clone that Trump made so that he could catch pedophiles, that he would then put the pedophiles in office, but that's only for he's an angel told him to do. You know what I mean? It's a very long, complicated. Uh, it's a maze. It's a labyrinth. You know what I mean? There's pans living down there or something like that. It's and it's hard to navigate. You know what I mean? That's why you don't have to like listen to it, or and certainly why you don't like want to argue with these people. But like, I don't know. I feel like anyone trying to argue political points, especially online, you just got to hang it up, dude. You know what I mean? On the right or these people are insane. In their defense, it's not that hard to become insane anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as difficult as it has been in the past. It's pretty easy to become, you know, have some sort of mental illness and go into psychosis, chronic, like lifelong psychosis. It's pretty easy to do that. I don't think people realize how just easy and simple that process can be. You can slide right into it. It's not like back in the day where you actually had to be insane. It's like it can happen to anyone now. Anyone anyone could wake up in the morning and start like digging in their walls for FBI agents and shit like that. Anyone can wake up in the morning and just start like spewing word salads out of their mouth, being like, and they were upside down, but they were right side up, and they were going back and forth and left. Anyone can do that shit nowadays. I think especially with social media, just like being in the dark all day and just staring at like a blue screen, like that has to make you crazy. The science doesn't. The science can suck my dick, dude. The science said the COVID vaccine was 100% effective. I don't give a shit what the science says. Okay, this isn't like new research. Like, yeah, I'll believe in evolution and like global warming and shit like that. Like, but if the science has come out like post like 2010, it's irrelevant to me. It does not matter in any way, shape, or form if it came out past 2000, because 2010, I feel like we kind of discovered everything. Like the only thing left at that point is like teleportation in like space and shit like that. If we're still talking about like genealogical scientific discoveries or whatever, like I guess dinosaurs. Like don't come to me unless you're talking about cloning dinosaurs. Same with like the mental health people. Don't come to me talking about your science or whatever until you've cured it all. Like that's all I give a shit about at this point. And even then, I probably still won't believe you when you said you cured it. It's like, no, it's a $20,000 per month fucking, medical plan. That that's gonna be their cure. It's just a $20,000 per month medical plan that you have to take for the rest of your life. That's gonna be the medical plan, or that's gonna be like the cure to these mental illnesses. So yeah, I don't really give a shit what the science is. All right, staring at a phone for I mean I feel like even an hour a day, you could pretty easily be driven insane at that point. Just like the lack of social interaction and just like probably the effect it has on your brain. And look, I'm an hour a day. I'm doing that times 27 days a week. So the fact that I haven't slipped into a massive psychosis yet is pretty insane. I don't know. I guess it means like if I was born back in the day, I would have been like a warrior king or something like that. If you're if you're able to like resist that in today's day and age, that's like being able to resist a fucking invading army in the year 1400 or some shit like that. Like seriously, if you're able to prevent your brain from just crumbling into 1,000 different pieces, uh, when you're staring at your phone all day, that means that back in the day you would have been like a philosopher or like a god king or something like that. So I do feel like people are that's like the main thing that's making and all the information, dude. All the back in the day, like Charles Darwin came up with evolution and people were like, "Dude, that's the most fucking insane thing I've ever heard. That's too much, dude. No one person can know all that." And now you get taught evolution, like the basics of evolution, but still you get taught evolution and like the way that life started on Earth when you're in like ninth grade. It's fucking insane, dude. That's way too much shit for people to like comfortably deal with. I think we gotta. Everyone says people are getting dumber. I think that is bad, but I do think we gotta slow it down on some shit like that. Because being 14 and being like life it's just started as a bunch of gas bubbles in like a fucking acid lake 2 billion years ago. That rocks your world. To like really think about when you're 14. And to be fair, 14-year-olds aren't thinking about that. They're like, all right, I'm just gonna forget about this, look over my notes later and then pass the test. Like that's what 14-year-olds no 14-year-old, or very few, are like going home and just like staring at the ceiling being like, what the fuck is it, what is it, well, like 14-year-olds aren't doing that. They're doing it to an extent, obviously, but I it's just they're 14 at the end of the day, and I'm sure that's how people feel about like people my age doing shit like that. But I do feel like when you're 14, you are fully retarded, and there's no there's no putting it nicely, there's nothing like that. If you're just fully retarded, and that's fine. That's what you're supposed to be when you're 14. Like these 14-year-olds that go to MIT or Harvard or whatever, Jesus fucking Christ. That's not what a 14-year-old is supposed to be. Good for that guy, but also that's just never gonna be a regular person, and that's fine. But it is a little bit like if they were like, your son's a genius and we're sending him to MIT. I'm like, no, you're not. Because imagine how much smarter the motherfucker's going to be when he's 18. If he's this smart when he's 14, fuck it, let's wait till he's 18. What is he going to do in those four? Like, he's not going to do that much with those 4 extra years. It doesn't really mean that much. Or if my daughter was a mega genius, although let's be fucking honest here. let's be let's be honest here. Women aren't exactly known. All right. And that does enter into our misogynistic section for this podcast. It's got to happen on every single one of these podcasts. All right, let's just call a spade a spade. We're going to get a little bit misogynistic. And this is probably about to get depending on how some people I don't think what I'm about to say is terribly misogynistic, but I do think it could be interpreted as that a little bit, you know? And honestly, people can interpret anything like anyway, so it doesn't really fucking matter how people interpret what I say. But I recently watched the movie Monster. If you don't know, you probably heard of it. I think it's the movie that Charlize Theron won the Oscar for. And by the way, Charlize Theron, obviously she's a hot lady. She's a beautiful lady. She was never my cup of tea though. She always had something about her face that I was like, she's hot, but like what is it? Like what is it that I don't like about that? And it's not even like she's probably like an 8 or like something like that. Like she's very hot, but there's just something about her face that I'm like, I don't know. I just don't fuck with it. And that was that was on display in this movie. If you've never seen the movie Monster or heard of it or looked at like pictures of Charlize Theron when she was in this movie, she looks like a dog, dude. It's I don't know how like I'm an ugly person already, kind of. Like I'm not an attractive person, but I don't think I could look as ugly as Charlize Theron did in that movie. I don't think I could. I think it would be difficult to make me look that ugly. It and it's like I'm way fuck, dude. I just dropped my headphones twice. Whatever. But anyway, I'm already I'm closer to being as ugly as what's the chick's name? Eileen Wuornos. That's who Charlize Theron is playing. I'm closer to Eileen Wuornos than Charlize Theron is, but like I don't think you could make me as ugly as Charlize Theron looked in that movie. She looked fucking I mean, just insanely a dog, dude. Like I don't know. I've referred to female UFC fighters as dog or as horse-faced lesbians. I've never referred to a woman as like looking like a dog. Charlize Theron in that movie looks like a fucking dog, dude. It's insane. I don't know how they did it. And there's no they were like, "Oh, she shaved her eyebrows off and gained 30 pounds." And it's like, dude, I think I could shave my eyebrows off and gain 30 pounds and not look as ugly as she did in that movie. I don't know how they did it. And I don't know, maybe it's something like how super attractive people have like very unique facial features, right? Like their nose, their jaw, all that shit. And so maybe in like super ugly people, they also have unique facial features in terms of like their all that stuff, right? So maybe that's why it's easier for like a super attractive person like her to look super ugly, right? Because she's already at one end of the extreme. It almost might be like a horseshoe type of thing. I don't know, but yeah, that movie was and that's not even the sexist thing that I'm getting to. She did look ugly as shit. I don't know. I don't feel like that's sexist. I feel like that's just an observation. Like she was just ugly, and that's what she was going for. So I mean, really, this is a fucking compliment. But she looked like a dog, dude. It was insane. I was like, there's no way that's the same lady. Like I've been fatter than I am now, and I'm still recognizable. Like I've lost 60 pounds. I I look relatively similar. She looked completely different than she does in real life. You know, just no eyebrows. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how like a pig, dude. That's seriously what she looked like. Beady ass fucking eyes, beady ass eyes, but also I don't know how to describe it. You just got to look it up. She looks actually like an animal, like a real life like and she's playing Eileen Wuornos in that movie. And Eileen Wuornos is she was like a pretty famous serial killer in real life. And yeah, she's probably the most famous female there's probably a few other female serial killers out there, but I do think Eileen Wuornos is probably the most famous, probably because of that movie. But basically, she was a hooker, right? And she had been a hooker since she was like 13 years old. And so already you're like, okay, I can understand how that person like turns into a serial killer or something like that. And also in the movie, she talks about how she was like raped when she was 8 or whatever. And it's like, okay, I see how she becomes a serial killer. But there's a difference between like seeing how someone becomes a serial killer and like being like, that was a good person, or you know what I mean? Like, the way the movie paints her is, like, it's supposed to be sympathetic, and I get that, you know, you should have sympathy and empathy for all people, but you can't, right? You can't have empathy for all people. That's too much emotional strain to put on yourself. You gotta, you know, if you in a perfect world, obviously you'd feel bad for everyone and you'd feel happy for them and all that good shit. But at the end of the day, you don't got the fucking time for that, dude. That's a lot of fucking. You're gonna be up and down all day. Like I feel like that would make you insane just to be like a purely holy, like empathetic person. So you kind of got to be like, fuck these people, right? You kind of got to have to like find a group, right? And for most of it's like pedophiles or serial killers or people like that, like real pieces of shit. For some people, it's like black people, right? Where they're just like, fuck them, I don't give a shit at all. They kill them all, right? For some people, it is black people, but for most people, it's like actual pieces of shit that you're like, I could feel bad for this person, right? There is a way in which I could empathize with this person as a fellow human being who just went through, I mean, a hellish life. And she did. Eileen Wuornos went through a hellish life. But also, I don't. She killed 7 people, dude. A lot of people, a lot, or I think more than 7. I think it was like 6 or 7, something like that. But she killed a fair amount of people, and way more than the average. I don't know what the average is, but she probably, yeah, like killed a fair amount of people. And the first person she kills, and this is all like a pretty true story. Some parts of it I think are fake, but generally the whole story is it's pretty reliable. So the first person she kills, she's a hooker, and she's like at this point she's like I think in like her mid 30s or 40s, and so she kills this guy who like knocked her out and raped her, and that one you're like, all right, that's a fair enough one, and so you kind of at that point in the movie you're kind of going in assuming like, all right, well she's just gonna like kill guys who like rape her or like her pieces of shit or like ask her to act like like a little kid, you know what I mean? Like shit like that. That's what you're thinking going into this and being like, well, why'd they kill her then? The bitch, she was doing the fucking cop's job for him. Who gives a shit if she was killing rapists and pedophiles and stuff like that? I don't care. Uh, and so that's how the movie kind of starts out, and then she just starts killing all the dudes that like pick her up, or not all of them, but like a fair amount of them. And the movie tries to like explain it as she's taking care of her girlfriend, and her girlfriend in the movie is played by another strangely attractive woman. Like I said, I don't find Charlize Theron that attractive. She's obviously hot as shit, but I don't know. I just don't think she's that hot. The other chick, she's got like kind of a weird, like alien type of face. Like if you've ever seen or like a Somalian almost with like a giant like top of the head and then like a small little jaw chin. She kind of looks Somalian, but like a white lady Somalian. Um, and she's pretty hot. But anyway, she's Charlize Theron's girlfriend, and they're like, she had to start killing and robbing these guys to take care of her girlfriend, who was like kicked out of the house because her parents were, uh, like hardcore Christians or whatever. But she's also like keeping mementos of all the people she killed, right? Like when she kills a person, they end up in the newspaper or whatever, and she like cuts it out of the newspaper and like keeps that. And it's like, no, this lady's just a psychopath. Like I get the point that they're going for, like the point they're trying to prove of how kind of the patriarchy or whatever you want to call it, like the mistreatment of women in society, and especially like young girls who have been victims of sexual abuse can kind of lead to these things. And it's like, I get that. I get the point you're trying to make there about how the mistreatment of women can cause women to go down like dark paths and do bad things. I understand that point, but it's also like, this isn't the lady that you want to be making that point with. And maybe that's not the point of the movie. Maybe it's just about Eileen Wuornos and how she fucking loved murdering people, because that she did love murdering these people, dude. Like she gets picked up by this one dude, and this is kind of a spoiler alert at the end of it, but she was a real fucking lady, so who gives a shit if it's a spoiler alert or not. But she picks up this one dude towards the end of the movie, and the dude is played by Herschel from The Walking Dead. And so he's like this kind Christian dude who's like No, I'm not. You said you needed a ride, right? Like that's how she picks up her Johns, like the dudes who are fucking her. She like pretends to hitchhike and goes, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And then, obviously they know the game as well. But this dude is just like a good Christian dude, and he's like, "Do you need a place to stay?" And she like lies to him about like reuniting with her kids or whatever. He's like, "Oh, I can help you. You can stay with us, and then we can take you down to go see your kids. You seem a little bit fucked up. We can help you out." And then she also kills that guy too, and it's like, I think she was just a psychopath. Like, I think this bitch was just gonna murder people regardless of what happened in her life. Or maybe not regardless of what happened in her life, but this bitch had like a predisposition to murdering people, you know? She just loved killing people. And so I think like trying to paint her as like this sympathetic figure and trying to like maybe point out a lot of these issues in society, that's not the lady you want to do that shit with, right? Because it's like doing it with Jeffrey Dahmer, right? It's like trying to do that shit with Jeffrey Dahmer, being like, Jeffrey Dahmer had like an emotionally abusive, neglectful mother. And so now we need to paint him as a sympathetic figure so that people can understand what these things lead to. And it's like, there's like how many thousands of people, like millions of people in America experience those things and don't go out and like kill and eat people like Jeffrey Dahmer did, right? It's this person, he didn't do that because he was abused and neglected. Eileen Wuornos didn't kill those people because she was raped. She killed them because she was a fucking psychopath who liked killing people. It, it's not to say that I like disagree with the message or like the thing that they're trying to point out or whatever. It's just that this isn't the person who you want to do that with. Um, but it honestly was a pretty fucking good movie. You know what I mean? Charlize Theron, it might just be the fact that she looked like that, because the chick doesn't really look like Charlize Theron, but Charlize Theron, you look at her and you go, oh yeah, that's a bitch who's like been through some shit, right? When you like look at her in the movie, um, and so yeah, she fucking killed that shit though. It was a pretty good movie, honestly. I just like thought kind of that like point that they were trying to make about like this lady killed and robbed people because she needed money and she got raped when she was. It's like no, no, right? Like people, and she was just like taking them out in the back of the woods and like shooting them in the head. It wasn't like a panic kill every time she did it. It was like a planned out, like pure psychotic, psychopathic murder, right? That's what she was doing in the movie. Um, and like the dudes that get killed, they don't they don't like paint them in a sympathetic way. Um, and honestly, this is where it gets a little bit controversial for me. Or I think people might get a little bit mad about shit like this, but it's like that's kind of the game. You know what I mean? Like that's if you think you're gonna go out and pick up like a street walking hooker or whatever and just like pay her $20 to suck your dick and then that's gonna be the end of that. It, this isn't that that's not what's gonna happen, you know what I mean? Like that's not the name of the game. Like you you kind of have to accept the fact that yeah, you might fucking get killed and robbed and shit like that. Like this bitch might kill you or pimp might pull up and kill you and rob you and shit like that. And so I don't have a ton of like sympathy for those people either. Or I do, right? Obviously, picking up a hooker, that's not good. You shouldn't be doing that. A lot of the guys were like pieces of shit who were like cheating on their wives and stuff like that. So you obviously shouldn't do that. But if you're gonna do that, if you get killed by that hooker, it's kind of a situation of me being like, I don't know. That's kind of just what happens when you go and pick up a hooker. But on the other end, that's kind of also how I feel about Eileen Wuornos, the hooker. Obviously she's a woman, so you automatically give her a bit more sympathy than you're going to give to a man. But it's also like, dude, if you're a hooker, you might get raped, right? If you're not saying you should, obviously, I would say that a hooker getting raped is worse than uh a John getting shot and killed and robbed and all that stuff. I do think that that one's worse, but it's also like, dude, that's just part of the game, right? Like if you're a drug dealer in Mexico and you piss off the cartel and you get skinned alive, it's like, yeah, that's bad. That shouldn't happen. But it's also kind of the name of the game a little bit. Like it's kind of like the risk you Except, once again, not saying it should happen, but I do think it's part of that game a little bit, right? Going back to like the drug dealer thing. If you're gonna sell drugs and you get like poked up by a junkie or whatever, it's just look, I wish it didn't have to be that way, but it is kind of that way. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. I'm not saying we should go out and rape hookers and stuff like that. I am just saying that is a risk of the game that you have to accept, right? Just like if you're John going out to pick up a hooker, you might get killed and robbed, and that's just part of it. Once again, should not be that way. I'm just saying that is part of the game. And honestly, by the end of the movie, this lady is a serial killer, right? They're like a psychopathic serial killer. She's not the most sympathetic character. And like by the end of it, she's like lying to her girlfriend, being like, every man I pick up tries to rape me, and that's why I kill all of them. And it's like, once again, uh, uh, the rapists are the problem in this in this situation. They 100% are the problem. And she's like lying about the fact that every dude is trying to rape her, but also at the same time, do you think it's wise for you to continue to be a hooker if every dude you pick up tries to rape you? Right? Do you think if I was a drug dealer and every time I sold drugs, I got robbed and then I kept selling drugs or whatever it is, right? Even if it's like a legal business, it's like, dude, if you keep getting robbed, it shouldn't happen, right? You shouldn't be getting robbed. You shouldn't be getting raped. I don't think that's controversial to say that. But if it keeps happening, dude, you might have to go get a job at Walmart. You might have to become a fucking cashier, because that's just it's a dirty business. Once again, not saying anyone should get killed or raped, but I do think that is like a part of the game, and people being like, well, it shouldn't be that way, being like, should be, hookers shouldn't get raped. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. No one should be getting raped, right? The only people who should be getting raped are rapists, and that's my personal opinion. But at the same time, that is the way it is, right? So, do you think no one trucks shouldn't be like killing people on the highway, right? But also check your blind spot. You know what I mean? People shouldn't be speeding on the highway, but also at the same time, double check to make sure you're safe to, you know what I mean, get in the other lane. It's kind of what I'm saying here. It didn't come out right, but I don't know. I don't know a better way to explain it because honestly, I'm pretty retarded. I'm not I'm not smart enough to explain what I'm thinking, but it's the truth of the situation. Um And so yeah, but the movie was fucking actually decent. It was actually a pretty decent movie. I was going into this being like, all right, what's this bullshit gonna be? It was fire, dude. It was some straight up heat. You know what I mean? Charlize Theron should have won the Oscar for that one. And you shouldn't rape anybody, even if it's a hooker. You shouldn't rape the hooker. Okay? You shouldn't be doing that stuff. But if you are a hooker, you got to know that that's a possibility in life. You know what I mean? If you're driving down I-35, you got to know a Hellcat with no plates on, it might be going 105 miles an hour. You just have to accept that fact. Um, and obviously, if you're a hooker, you can still kill the guy that's raping you. You should, or, you know what I mean. Take care of that for everybody. You know what I mean. Prevent that from happening in the future. But it's also part of the game a little bit. You know what I mean. If you betray the cartel, you might get your tongue pulled out of your neck. I don't know it shouldn't happen, right? Um, but it's a possibility. Um, I don't know. I don't know what point I was trying to make there. I guess it's like if you're a hooker and some dude, really, if anyone gets raped, and then you're just like, I'm just gonna kill every man I meet now. Uh, don't do that. I guess is the point I'm trying to make. I guess the entire point I was trying to make is that she's just not a sympathetic character in my mind. Like, like trying to like excuse this as being like, well, she was horribly mistreated. It's like, yeah, dude. So are how many other young women in this country? How many young women are horrifically abused like that? They don't go around being like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna kill everyone I meet." And also the whole angle of it being like, well, she's just trying to take care of her girlfriend. It's like, dude, this movie takes place in like the 70s or 80s, I think. Or maybe like the early that bitch can get a job at Walmart and get like a one-bedroom apartment. This isn't like modern times where it's like both people have to be working 60 hours a week at a fucking high-level office job to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. This is like the early 90s. She can go bag groceries for a living and be able to get this other bitch a fucking place to stay, you know. Uh, and they do make out in the movie, but the thing is, chicks making out is hot, but lesbians making out isn't hot. And the reason for that is lesbians are just dudes, right? So I would say a dude and a chick kissing is hotter than two lesbians kissing. If you see the angle I'm kind of going for here, because lesbians are basically already dudes anyway. They're already the what most lesbians are more masculine than most men in this country. I feel like at this point, and so so they do make out. You know, it's Charlize Theron and I think the other chick is Christina Ricci. I think that's her name, and they're both hot chicks, but they both very much look like lesbians in this movie, like real lesbians, not none of this fake ass. I take a sip of water there. Not none of like this fake ass, modern day, oh, I'm a lesbian with long hair and I wear dresses. Not that bullshit. Real fucking lesbians. Flannel wearing, you know what I mean? Wallet chain having, you know, trucker cap lesbians. Like, that's the type of, like, real ass lesbians these chicks are. And so they do make out a couple times. And it's like you expect it to be hot because it's two hot chicks making out. But and this is, I guess, like props to the costume designer or whatever, because they look like some real ass lesbians. You know what I mean? Like they look like the lesbians that I look at on the street, and I'm like, I fucking salute them, and I like keep fighting the good fight, brother. Right? Like conservative. They look like MAGA lesbians or something like that in this movie, and so I do think it's another thing that made it so good. You know, you weren't looking at them being like, these are that ain't a fucking lesbian. You're looking at him and you go, that chick munches box and beats her fucking girlfriend. That's that's what these two were looking like. And so I do appreciate that fact about the movie. And it came out a while ago, so we didn't have to deal with like this woke lesbian bullshit nonsense of being like, oh, you can be a lesbian who's hot. It's like, no, you can't, dude. It's not the way the rules work. If you're a lesbian, real lesbian, you gotta be ugly, man. It's just part of the game. Same with if you're a gay dude. And it's the inverse for a gay dude. If you're a gay dude, you gotta be hot, man. It doesn't, necessarily have to be like jacked and all that shit. But if you're a gay dude, you gotta be on top of your shit. You know what I mean? And if you're a lesbian, kind of the opposite. Like if you're a lesbian, I want to see you wearing like a Fruit of the Loom, like gray sweatsuit, stained right the fuck up, covered in dog hair and shit. Like that's what I want to see out of lesbians. What I want to see out of gay men is like a game fucking perfect looking dudes, right? Even if you don't necessarily have the assets it takes to be hot, I want to see you putting in that effort, to be hot if you're a gay dude. And so, yeah, very realistic lesbians in that movie. And just like real lesbians, they argue with each other fucking constantly. Um, and yeah, it's just a pretty good movie overall. Like, sure, and honestly, as much shit as I kind of talked about the movie, or maybe like kind of the message. And once again, I could be completely misinterpreting it. I could be completely fucking wrong. Um, but as much as I talk shit about the movie, Eileen Wuornos is a fucking beast, dude. She is a beast. I was like even when she kills the first guy, I was still like rooting for them. And really, until she kills Herschel from The Walking Dead at the very end, I was still like, this bitch is the fucking mess. She like rules so hard. And like I was saying, if you're a dude and you pick up a hooker, you might get shot and killed, man. And that's just part of the fucking game. So I was obviously a little pissed at her for doing that shit, but I wasn't like too upset about it, Because it's like she's a serial killer. It's what she's gonna do. She's gonna kill people and stuff like that. It's how they are. It's what they do. Um, but she was a beast, dude. She was just like getting blackout drunk, smoking cigarettes, eating her girlfriend's box, getting in fistfights and shit. Like she like ruled as a character. In the movie, I think in a lot of ways made her, like, more unlikable. Like, if it was just Charlize Theron running around, getting blackout drunk and shooting dudes in the back of the head, I would've been like, "This is a sick fucking movie, dude." Like, even if it was the somewhat innocent dudes she was killing. Not fully innocent, right? They're picking up a hooker. And I think that's another reason why I empathize with the women a little bit more, in this situation, because it's like, you're a dude picking up, like, a dirty hooker. Like, there's just something fucked up about that to me. Like, you don't have to do that, but I feel like a lot of hookers do have to do that, you know what I mean? They don't their minds their situation might be a situation where they're not able to do something else, but also it might be a thing of like Eileen Weirno. She was just so horribly mistreated as a child that like her brain can't comprehend another way to like make money than like being a hooker. But also it clearly could because how she made money was by killing people and robbing them. So, but overall, she was a beast in that movie. And the reason I say the movie makes her a little bit like gay is because they were trying to paint it as, like, the reason she did this was because she loved Christina Ricci so much. And it's like, no, she didn't, dude. She didn't love Christina Ricci. She was a fucking sociopath, right? She was a psychotic murderer. She did not love that lady. Stop trying to make it seem like she did, dude. She loved killing people, and if that's what they focused on, I would have been like, I would have liked the movie even more. It was already a really good movie, but those moments of her being like, "I'll always love you." What's the girl's name? I think in the movie her name is Selby Wall. She's like, "I'll always love you, Selby. I'll always love you." And it's like, no, you won't. You didn't love her in the first place, bitch. You're crazy. You're a psychopath who's out of her goddamn mind. And I think they were also going for like a closeted lesbian type of thing, like a chick who doesn't want to come out of the closet due to like social pressures or whatever. And it's like that's also not a reason to like kill people, you know? And I do think money can be like a sympathetic reason to kill people, but this bitch was getting like $200 a kill. It wasn't like she was a hitman and it was like, I'm gonna give you $150,000 to go shoot that guy, who's also probably a piece of shit. And once again, the reason that I think the people who made the movie uh, chose Eileen Weirno specifically was because she was killing dudes who were pieces of shit for the most part, right? Obviously, not all of them. Uh, and she did take mercy on this one dude who just like jacked off in the car with her, right? She didn't kill his ass. She just like took all his money and left. Um, but and she's killing pieces of shit. So you don't really need to you don't really need to make me feel like more sympathetic towards her because I'm already pretty close to being like, yeah, a lot of these dudes. I'm not saying they deserve to die necessarily, but I do think a lot of them might be like better off not in the game, you know. But I also do think Eileen Wuornos would be better off not in the game. You know, I think it's a fair thing to say. She killed 7 people. It's fair to take her out at this point, you know what I mean? It's like if a dude misses like 10 threes in a row, it's like you got to take that guy out of the game. You know what I mean? Dudes that are going and picking up street hookers and being like, "Call me daddy" and all. Look, I don't think he makes society significantly better is what I'm saying. Maybe as a person you should be like, we shouldn't kill that guy, but also we're not missing him. We're not missing him, and we're also not missing Eileen Wuornos. But she was a beast in that movie. I was watching that movie like she's just shooting guys in the head, getting blackout drunk, and eating box. If if they just tweaked a few things about that story, it would have been the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. It seriously would have been the greatest character I've ever seen. But yeah, pretty good movie. Kind of, if I'm interpreting it correctly, which I very well might not be, um, kind of a dumb message. I think they could have chosen a better person to try to get that message across. I maybe, if my interpretation is correct, I can maybe understand that they were trying to be like, and this is like the extreme lengths to which these young abused women can go. But at the same time, it's like shooting an innocent dude in the back of the head who's like just trying to take care of you. That's That's different than shooting a guy who's, like, trying to rape you, you know what I mean? Like, you were born with a predisposition to, like murdering, if you're just shooting an innocent dude in the back of the head for $200 in his wallet. I just feel like that's the truth. But beast of a character, very sick character. I hope she's that sick in real life. Honestly, if she was telling the truth and all those dudes were trying to rape her, then she fucking rules hard as shit. But she probably wasn't. I do imagine most of them were just hated their fucking fat wives and were just trying to get head. I do think that that's what most of those dudes were doing, which not a good thing to do. You know what I mean? You married that woman. You gotta be with her through sickness and in health. You gotta work with the bitch. All right, but um, they were kind of pieces of shit, and I wasn't too terribly upset by some of them dying. Obviously, not all of them, but some of them. And so yeah, that's my review of the movie Monster. 4 out of 5 stars, pretty fucking decent. Maybe even 4.5. I really liked it. All right, but now we got to get into the news. What are we going to be talking about in the news? So our first article is from the Los Angeles Times, and this one is Southern California is in for a weekend of severe weather, forecasters say. And this is colon what we know. So what's this severe weather that the forecasters are talking about? So Southern California will be under a severe weather threat Saturday with the most powerful wave of an incoming atmospheric river storm peaking over the weekend in Los Angeles County and bringing a risk of mud flow, debris flow, and possibly a tornado. Dude, this is. I think I've seen this movie with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I think I've seen the fucking Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie where a tornado somehow forms in the middle of Los Angeles, and I remember it being pretty good. Is it? I'm almost 90% sure that that's like the exact plot storyline of a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie. I do think it is. Uh, but the people of Los Angeles, man, they're just such. I think maybe this will bring LA. It could be like the start of bringing LA back to what it was. And what I mean by that is a lot of the pussies who move to LA, to just live there, right? Like a lot of people who move to LA just move there to live in LA. And I get it, dude. I went to LA once. It's pretty fucking sick. I thought I would fucking hate it. LA is pretty sick. I don't think I would want to live there, but like it has something to it that you're just like, this place fucking rules. Or maybe not rules, but it's a very interesting place. Just like the infinite urban sprawl of it. Like we went to Griffith Park and like we didn't hike all the way to the top. I don't think you can. I think the top is like some other shit. Or the top is like past the Hollywood sign, so I don't think you can go up there. But just like looking around and just seeing like infinite city, there's something crazy about that. And then when you're in the city, it's I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's just very it's like downtown everywhere, right? Or maybe not like a full downtown, but like yeah, I don't. It's a pretty sick place to live, but a lot of the people who live in LA just like move there to move there, because they thought it was like a sick place to live. And so I think that this sort of severe weather will push out a lot of those LA pussies and stuff like that. And so it'll push out all those pussies, and then there will be chaos for like 5-10 years, and then LA will come back. If that comes from this, and just climate change as a whole, the forest fires, the tornadoes, all the fucking shit these people are going through. I think it'll push out the pussies. Then it'll be kind of like New York in like the 70s and 80s, and then after that it'll be like New York in the 90s and like early 2000s, and it'll be like pretty chill. But that's just pure retarded speculation. I have no fucking idea. If rain falls as forecast, this storm could result in downtown Los Angeles seeing its wettest November since 1985. Heavy rain brings the possibility of damaging flooding and landslides, with fire-scarred hills from the Eaton and Palisade fires at risk of fast-moving flows of mud and debris. This might be a Sodom and Gomorrah situation, dude. God might be looking down on Los Angeles and being like, they made the Little Mermaid black. I have to destroy that city. Yes. They made Frankenstein hot. I have to destroy LA now. This is the modern day Gomorrah. That's my guess as to what's going on in LA. You know, because it's just this perfect cocktail for like a citywide destruction. And I think God is like he's mad that they made Frankenstein like a hot 6'8" dude. He's like, nice, Frankenstein's ugly, dude. I hate women. Why are women such bitch? And it's a big controversy on the internet. If you guys don't know, is that Frankenstein was hot? I guess in the new Franken, which I wasn't gonna go. I didn't watch Nosferatu. I didn't. I'm not gonna go watch this new Frankenstein movie, even though I like both of the people who made those movies, because I think Frankenstein, that was Guillermo del Toro, and Pan's Labyrinth was pretty sick. I like that one, and then Nosferatu was Robert Eggers, and obviously I love the Vitch, dude. Fucking Anna Taylor Joy in that movie, dude. She's so goddamn hot. So I like both of them. Um, but yeah, I didn't go and say like I just don't like this is a modern retelling of an old story, and it's like, dude, I get that it's hard to come up with ideas at this point. You know, I feel like uh a lot of these a lot of like the stories that have been told, there's not a whole ton of stories left to be told, so I understand why they're going back to Frankenstein. And I think that this was supposed to be like a closer interpretation of Mary Shelley's original Frankenstein stories, because obviously most of the Frankenstein stories just made Frankenstein into a monster, and it was just like a horror movie and stuff like that. Whereas Mary Shelley's, and I didn't fucking read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I think it's like a series of letters or something like that. I think that's like what they like compiled it into a book or something like that. But I do know that it's like Frankenstein isn't a bad dude. You know, his last name is Stein, but fortunately he's not Jewish. Although he's made up with a bunch of different body parts, so he might be Jewish, so I might fucking hate Frankenstein, but he's supposed to just be like this misunderstood monster. And I get that. But he's also a key aspect of his character is the fact that he is a monster. He's like this ugly, horrendous creature to fucking look at. He's despicable. He like everyone is horrified when they see him. And that's like kind of, I guess, maybe the theme behind Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And then I think, who was he played by? He was played by that tall gay dude from fucking Saltburn, I think is who he was played by. Frankenstein movie. Um, I think that's who he was played by. And it's like, that dude, yeah, Jacob Elordi. That dude is so hot that you could not make him ugly, like if you tried. He's an incredibly fucking hot dude to look at. No offense. But yeah, and you're looking at him and you're like, that's just like a hot dude with like a couple fucking scars on his face, right? So there can't be the argument there that this version of Frankenstein is like is like a closer retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because they're painting him as this, you know, sympathetic monster or whatever. It's like he's got to be a monster for kind of the rest of the story to make sense, or for the true theme, the true message of the story to get through. That he should have been it should have been me who fucking played Frankenstein, dude. It should have been a 5'4" fucking balding dude who played not Jacob goddamn Elordi, dude. Look at this dude. He is a hunk. And then you're looking at modern Frankenstein and you're like, that's like a hot dude. Like, modern Frankenstein looks like a pretty decently attractive guy, you know? He doesn't have like any of like the horrendous stitching or whatever. He doesn't look like terribly ugly. And so it's you it's just, I think the argument that it's like, oh, Guillermo del Toro, he's just like a genius and he actually understands Frankenstein and he's not going to make him this horrible ugly monster who is just purely evil and stuff like that. And it's like, the old retellings of Frankenstein, they were wrong, right? Frankenstein, he is a horrible, disgusting monster, but he's not like a bad he's not like a bad dude or anything. He's just like a guy. But because he's so horrible and ugly, um, everyone hates him, right? Like that's kind of what Frankenstein was. And then this new Frankenstein, it's like I don't think it's either of those things, right? Like, I feel like the old retellings of Frankenstein were at least more accurate in the sense that Frankenstein was like this horrible, disgusting monster, right? They were wrong about the fact that he was like an evil thing who wanted to like crush people's heads and all that stuff. But they were right about the fact that he was like an ugly, horrible, disgusting thing. But this new Frankenstein, it doesn't get either of those things right. It's Frankenstein is supposed to be just horrific to fucking like look at. Like that's integral, I'd say, to the message. Yeah, and it's like jacked Jacob Elordi. He has like a fucking 8-pack, dude. And he's like hot as shit. And so it should have been me, is all I'm saying. It should have been 5'3", balding, fucking fucked up teeth. Yo, what's going on in Frankenstein? Like that's what it should have been. It shouldn't have been Jacob Elordi. It should have been a dude who's ugly in the first place, and then you put a bunch of makeup and like CGI on him to make him look even fucking uglier. Like that's who it should have been. Shouldn't have been this dude. And I think that's why God's mad. God's like, no, dude, Frankenstein should have been a short little fucking incel chud, not goddamn gorgeous Jacob Elordi, dude. That's who it should have been. And that's why he's destroying Los Angeles. He's had enough of their bullshit. He's a black Little Mermaid. I let that one slide. Now, hot Frankenstein, dude, fuck you. I'm taking this city out. I think that's what's going on here. So, but let's read a little bit more about this flood that's going to be hitting SoCal. So, the severe weather threat is expected for much of Saturday from midnight through 9 p.m. A flood watch will be in effect for a wide swath of Southern California from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday. Evacuation warnings are in effect through 11 a.m. Sunday in areas near recent burn scars due to risk of mud and debris flow. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of have to admire the people of Los Angeles in a way, you know, because they're like the Florida people, where it's like a fucking Category 10 hurricane. Hurricane kill your entire family, dude. Hurricane walk them down and switch them will be like coming to fucking, you know, Titusville, Florida or whatever, and they'll be like, I'm not fucking leaving, dude. I'm not leaving Titusville. I'd never leave. This is my home. I'd never leave. A bit of water's coming in. And that's how the LA people are, but with fire. And fire's even fucking more terrifying than water. Because you can swim. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably hard as shit to swim in a hurricane, but you can make it through a bit of water. You can't swim through fire. You know what I mean? If the fire pulls up, you're fucked. There's no thing of like, I can keep my head above water. You cannot keep your head above fire. That's taking you right the fuck out. So I do have to, you know, they are getting wiped out by God for making Frankenstein hot, but I do have to admire just like their pure dedication to like being like, yeah, I'm gonna get burned to death and I don't really give a shit, dude. I'm just looking at hot Frankenstein right now and it's making me pretty goddamn pissed off. It's making me mad, dude. He's supposed to be ugly. It should have been me. It should have been me. All right, and so our second article from today is from the BBC. We do a lot. We get a lot of articles from the BBC. So, astonishingly lethal. BBC reports from site of Russian strike in Kiev. Kyiv, however the fuck you say it. At least 6 people have been killed in a wave of Russian strikes on Kyiv, which the Ukrainian president Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned as a heinous attack. The BBC's James Landale visited the scene of one attack in eastern Kyiv where a drone rammed through a block of flats, apartments, and left 6 people dead. Several other regions were also targeted. A drone attack on a market at Kornomorsk in the south of the country killed 2 people. This isn't surprising. Oh, this is a video, so there's fucking nothing to read here. I don't know. I'll see if I can find another article to read real quick, but I mean, it sounds like they got 8 people when it's all said and done. Yeah, here's the article. All right, let's read a little bit about this. So, a Russian drone has slammed into a block of flats in East. Okay, and as emergency workers sifted through the wreckage in the Losoivy area, one Kyiv resident called Vita described how the drone had pierced the building, exploding on the other. Oh, that's odd. I thought when you flew, like, planes into buildings, the fucking buildings collapsed in, like, a perfect demolition controlled type of way. I thought that's maybe drone fuel doesn't melt steel beams like jet fuel does. But this is Osama might be smiling. He's probably looking up, grinning a little bit, being like, Putin had it. See? That's kinda how you fly it into the building. A lot of people think you just drop the bomb. No, what you gotta do is you gotta fly it into the Osama's like a proud dad right now. He's like, "Go, Vladimir. Do it. Fly it into that building. Kill all those fucking Ukrainians." Um, he might be a little bit hyped about this stuff, but yeah, I don't know, sucks for Ukraine, but also Zelensky, fuck that guy. Like, seriously, fuck Zelensky, dude. You gotta make a compromise about this shit, dude. You can't, and obviously he's not the one in control. Obviously, there's some sort of like deep state. I'm sure there's American, intelligence telling him to not fucking surrender to Ukraine or to Russia, but it's you you gotta get got, dude. It's like Marshawn Lynch said. Imma get got, but Imma get mine more than I get got though. And that's kinda what you gotta do to Putin. You gotta be like, "Hey, you can have" what's it? The Donbass region? You can have that shit, Putin. But you gotta, and then you kinda hunker down, kinda do what Israel's doing, and just, like, destroy him with fucking social engineering and, like, spies and stuff like that. Like, that's what Zelensky's gotta do. And he's in a perfect situation to do that because Ukrainians are Russians. They're the same people. I don't No, they're not. They speak a different. They look the exact same. Their language sounds the exact same. They're all named like Galatovich or whatever. They're the same people. So Zelensky has already a perfect like stock, a stable of Slavic fucking potato faced morons that he can send in to be spies in Russia. But after he, you know what I mean, lets Putin think he won. But yeah, sucks for the people of Ukraine that their leadership is inept and doesn't want to compromise. And people are like, well, if Putin gets this, he's going to take Poland next. And it's like, dude, Ukraine is the Poland of Poland. You know how Poland is everyone, how many Polacks does it take to screw in a light bulb? You know that. You know what they say in Poland? They say, how many fucking Ukrainians does it take to screw in a light bulb? All right. Putin he's barely getting the job done in Ukraine. He's not getting into fucking Poland, dude. How many Polacks does it take to kill a Russian soldier? Not that many, okay? The boys can't screw in a light bulb, but I'm sure they know how to shoot a gun. So, and there's also, I think Poland has like twice the fucking population of Ukraine. I have to look that up. I think Poland, I could be remembering completely wrong, but I think Poland's got a fair amount of people living in there. No, but they do have like 10 more million people than Ukraine. And I think they're a part of NATO. And Putin's not going to go after Poland next. Who gives a shit if he goes after Ukraine? He just wants a little bit of land, dude. He's not trying to take the entire country. If he was going after the whole shebang, I'd be like, all right, for a couple of reasons. That's like morally wrong, but also from like a strategic standpoint, it's not going to work out, Putin. The CIA knows how to effectively arm and train a guerrilla force. You're not going to take over Ukraine, Putin. You might like officially, gain control of the land or whatever, but you ain't beating them. You ain't beating them like that, dude. The Ukrainians they've lived through some shit. You're not getting them. You're not getting them that easy. But whatever, who gives a shit? Fucking Frankenstein should be ugly. The movie Monster was all right. Honestly, Frankenstein. Charlize Theron in Monster could have played Frankenstein, and I would have been more content than the current Frankenstein we had. But it is what it is. I hope you all have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life. Hope everyone does. Hope everyone can have a great day and a great life. But probably not, dude. I don't know. Looking at the history of it, I don't think everyone's going to have a great life, but I hope you do. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.